Hey, how's everyone doing? Welcome to another Move Tuesday, our first
Yo.
ever.
Hi
Hey,
there.
how's it going, Deport?
What's up?
How's it going?
We got Pontum. Is that Alejo?
Yes, I'm here. Excited for
Awesome.
this Move Tuesday.
I think we also have Concordia that's up here today to help us host with, let's see, we got Thomas.
Present.
Awesome.
Good to see you all. Hope you're having a great Amsterdam.
Let's double check. All right, and I think we also have a bunch of guest speakers here as well. Just doing a quick check on that. We should have Mitch from Switchboard.
Yep, how's it going?
Awesome, welcome. Let's see, we have Can from, or actually, I guess it's Sentio from Can.
It's Ken from Santio, yeah.
Opposite.
Yeah, it's Ken from Santio, yeah. I'm here.
Excellent. And then we have Anish from the Panthers.
Hi, guys.
Welcome everybody. So if I were to go through the notes, it looks like today we're going to talk about a lot of really cool topics such as oracles, tooling, analysis tooling, and AI. And we're already about 5 minutes in, so it seems appropriate that we should go ahead and get this whole thing kickstarted. Just to give everybody heads up, this is our last Twitter session before we head off to Amsterdam, where we're going to be kicking off our hackathon in just 6 days from now. So it's really exciting to bring all these folks together so we can start talking about what some cool ideas and concepts that we can start hacking on in the upcoming week. But before we get started, let's go ahead and have everybody just do a quick elevator pitch about what you're working on and what your role is at your organization. And so I'll just go based upon what I see on my Twitter. And so going first with Alejo from Pontum.
Awesome. So yeah, many of you might know me, but I'm a founder at Pontum. We're building infrastructure like the wallet that hopefully many of you use. We also have Liquid Swap and other public goods, such as the ledger integration that hopefully many of you are using as well. So yeah, excited to be here and talk about some of these. AI is also something I'm passionate about on the side. So yeah, excited to hear what some thoughts are here.
Awesome. Welcome, Alejo. Next up, we got Mitch from Switchboard.
Hi, all. Yeah, I'm Mitch. I'm CTO of Switchboard, which is an Oracle protocol on Aptos. And really, we're really excited to be reshaping the idea of like how people think about oracles and bringing any type of information on chain. And with our new product, Switchboard Functions, we're going to let people run anything and prove everything. And I can explain more in the talk later.
Awesome. Next up, we got Can from Sentio.
Yeah, hi. I'm Ken. I'm a co-founder of Santio. So we built crypto dev tools that integrate metrics, logs, trace, and debugger and simulation. So building dev tools is like promoting a great engineering best practice. So we came from Google background, so we really believe in this. And we really believe in you should have a good measurement on everything you work on. So that's how you can optimize. And you also need a tool to understand what really happened in the system. Yes, on Aptos we offer this real-time monitoring and log management, and we plan to add more on the tracing and debugging in the future. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Happy to have you here. Let's see. Next up, we've got Anish from the Panthers.
Hi there. So I am a co-founder, CTO, and chief scientist for Panther Protocol. We are one of those zero-knowledge guys. We provide privacy for DeFi. And personally, I have a very long-standing interest in AI ML, mostly in terms of explainability and ethics. So that's it. Glad to be here. I'm happy that you guys added me to the panel.
Absolutely. Welcome. And last but not least, we've got Thomas from Concordia.
Hey, good to see everyone. I run technology at Concordia, where we're building a universal risk and portfolio platform for digital assets, which is launching first on Aptos. What it gives you is one risk engine, one way to manage your collaterals and debts and loans, all under one roof, but still fully DeFi native.
Awesome, and welcome. So just to kind of get kickstarted, to throw out a big one out there, I'm going to kind of go really out of order from the questions here, but I'm just kind of curious, what's everybody thinking about AI and blockchains, and what's something that we should be doing in Aptos that we're not doing right now?
I'm actually using ChatGPT to help me answer this question.
That's a good one.
But yeah, I mean, I'm excited because you know, we've been looking at AI for a really long time as something that's, you know, over the horizon, and now with these large language models, we're seeing it actually being useful. Like even just asking this question, right? Where does blockchain and AI intercept? I think some important use cases could be, for example, the transparency of models that are coming out. You know, how do we know what's the source of truth, or you know, what information we can trust from what we see on ChatGPT? Other things are going to be, for example, security of that information. So where is it stored, and then how is it, you know, proved that it's actually being used what we think it's being used? And then maybe more abstract, how do these models get to interact with each other and be able to collaborate with payments? So for example, if you have an algorithm that's like specifically doing one thing, let's say making paper clips or I don't know, trading, it can then coordinate with other algorithms that are doing other specific things and then pay each other with crypto. So I think the intersection is pretty cool. And I think some low-hanging fruit for Aptos specifically can be integrating some of the natural language models for things like docs, even coding. I know, you know, obviously you want to make sure that you're reading your code and, you know, going over it, but it can be a great tool for you know, debugging or getting ideas on how to build simple frameworks.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, it seems to me like there could be
also is how you actually bring some of this technology on chain. You know, you can't actually run these LLMs on chain for a lot of things that you might want to do. Let's say you want to make a trading bot that controls all your funds. How can you actually verify that the trading bot is behaving according to the language model? And that's some of the problems we're trying to tackle with Switchboard as well, actually.
The thing I wanted to say was, like, you know, I wouldn't go as far as running bots on large language models on chain in that sense, but I fully agree with the previous speaker on explainability. I mean, transparency, explainability, security characteristics, and all set of black box models. So typically speaking, the 2 or 3 things that's generally useful would be, I mean, again, I might be biased. One is the use of ZK. So that's like a bunch of ZKML stuff that's out there. The other thing is FHEs. So, you know, there are ways by which we could actually leverage any L1s that has the ability to interact with them to, you know, prove certain characteristics on chain. That probably might be very interesting. I'm not sure there's any immediate low-hanging fruits that we could go for right away. That's my thought.
So blockchains are particularly well suited for attesting to facts. And that's really all Bitcoin is at the end of the day. It's a humongous machine where we all agree on one fact at a time. And I think one of the problems that AI is going to push on us very soon is to know whether or not an image that you find on the internet, an article that you find, was generated by a human or by something artificial. There's probably going to be a watermark system that goes on photos and videos and, I don't know, recipes, whether it came out of ChatGPT or something else. And so blockchain, with its ability to trace these facts back to a signer, could be a useful tool for doing just that. You know, you couldn't forge a New York Times watermark because it would be attested by their own signing key, and you would know where content came from.
Yeah, I think that's going to be very important. Like even using ChatGPT today, you know, the biggest risk I think is just figuring out whether it's true or not, right? Because it's just posting stuff that's coming from the internet, and the internet, you know, it's just a huge soup of information. You don't really know what's true or not. So yeah, being able, like reputable organizations like New York Times or Washington Post or whoever, right? Being able to attest at least gives us a, you know, a source of, I guess, yeah, maybe not truth, but source of, you know, whoever posted it, to know at least, or make our own decisions on it.
Yeah, good point. It's not exactly the same thing as truth, but there's no questioning who said what. That's what a blockchain does well. that I did this transaction.
Did we lose the moderator here?
No, you guys are doing great.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious because the more I look at AI in the space, I think there's some interesting things on the facade, on the horizon, and on the perimeter of blockchains. But a lot of what we're talking about here is much more about. I'm curious if there's anything that directly intertwines AI and blockchains directly together. Because like the big pitches that we're talking about here are attestation, which is something blockchains are great at. I completely agree. The other one is facilitating the development in the ecosystem, which, that's kind of akin to what we've seen other applications of AI and coding in general. And then, just the data analysis aspect, which again is pretty common themes there. So I'm curious if anybody, and the answer could be no at this point in time, it might still be too early, but is there anything specific to applications on blockchain that would directly benefit from AI, or is it more about how they can kind of commingle and amplify each other?
Yeah, I think anything with AI has to run such a large model that you're never going to be training sets on chain, of course. And if it is, it's just going to be so constant intensive. I think a good bridge for some of this stuff is actually TE technology, which can, in a much more cost-effective way, run these models. And then you can make a whole attestation primitive for proving the TE ran successfully on chain too. So I think there could be a bridge between those two technologies.
I will probably have to agree to disagree with you on that one. TEs have always had the big challenge, like a mass. So full disclaimer, I've written a couple of papers, in fact, a long while ago, more than 15 years ago, and been very interested in TEs. But at the same time, I'm cautiously optimistic. So, if the security margin for anything we do is very, very low, I am okay with TEs. Otherwise, it's just flipping the security model and handing it over to a set of entities which we have no control over, no ability to update anything, and assuming everything has been done right. So that to me is like, trusting under the black box. But if we were to think about, okay, it's okay to trust this black box for $100, I'm very much with you on that. We could just agree we all trust this on, this black box for $100, keep track of its black box, and everybody checks if the black box is actually doing what it says. Very good place to be. But instead, if you're going to say, I'm going to put 100 billion into this, I am probably against the camp. I would probably say TE is not a place to do that.
So I would say that the way technology moves is definitely in layers. I would say that TE is definitely not a perfect solution as it stands today. But relating that to primitives, like other technologies that we have solutions for, I just don't think that any type of learning model could actually take full advantage of any type of ZK technology to actually verify what's actually running. So yes, it's an incremental improvement, but an improvement nonetheless.
Cool. With that, let's make a small shift over to another topic, since we did do the fun deep dive into AI, and maybe we can come back to that later on. But I want to first hit on some of the other reasons why we brought people on this morning. So the other big one is just in terms of tooling, data analysis. What do you feel like? What's the current state of the art on Aptos, and where do you feel like that we have shortcomings where we can double down on?
I think we are lacking on Aptos, we're lacking the tracing primitives. So if you compare like EVM with Aptos today, the big difference is the tracing primitive. For someone to really understand what's going on a transaction, you have to know the trace. And then, there are different level of trace, right? Like even for the most fundamental ones, like call trace, we don't have that primitive on Aptos. And on EVM, on the other hand, we have a different level of trace, so it's very convenient for people to really understand what's going on in a transaction. So that's probably, I feel like it's a big gap on Aptos right now.
Could you talk a little bit more about what you mean by tracing?
Oh yeah, like for example, if for example, if you look at the Explorer, right? Like you really only look at you can only see the entry function, which is the entry function called in online transaction. But if there are like contract calling each other and all the function calls, inside a transaction, you don't have that visibility, and you also don't have a VM trace, like each opcode, all of that stuff, right? You cannot do a like a historical simulation on every opcode, right? So you really cannot do that, right, today. But you can. So all of that primitives exist on EVM. So we also build on EVM, so we can really provide a more tooling to help people understand what's going on in a transaction.
That makes a lot of sense. And actually, one of the big things that we were really proud of in the Aptos space is that you can have other contracts seamlessly call each other. And to your point, we don't actually know what the relationship of anything is on chain, or at least that I'm aware of. Maybe somebody else in the group does have that tooling or knows about that tooling or has plans to build it out. But I would love to better understand what are our popular contracts and what can we learn from each other? Because I think that's an area that's kind of opaque to me at this point in time. Any other data or tooling that we should be looking into?
I think.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, and kind of give kudos to the Sentio team here, is just like general analytics on what's going on Aptos. So I think Aptos does a really good job on the Block Explorer to put very high level ones in. We use the Sentio dashboards specifically for understanding liquid swap, but understanding the adoption and some of the usage across the ecosystem, I think is also useful. And maybe there's some way to host those also publicly. I think that would be extremely useful. And then going down the line of this, what's useful for DeFi protocols, and maybe you would love to hear Thomas's view on this, is kind of like the data analysis that goes into risk management. And I know, for example, on Ethereum, there's a whole ecosystem of tools like Gauntlet, for example, that looks at some of the credit protocols like Maker and Aave, and kind of like post publicly, the risk profiles and what some of the ratios should be. But I think that's still emerging in Aptos, and we'd love to see that be a little bit more developed. And teams like Sentio here, for example, I think could potentially lead that.
Yeah, infrastructure can cover a wide spectrum of things that we do with computers. I mean, of course, having archival nodes, data warehouses, just a publicly crawlable record of everything that's ever happened on Aptos would be amazing. And that's quite an undertaking to build that warehouse out. And if you squint, infrastructure can also mean things more like software, like tools and utilities that help you get things on chain, observe them, react to them, buzz your pager when something unexpected happens. And infrastructure could also mean small utility programs themselves. Something like a program that helps manage DAO votes, or a program that just helps manage staking as such. And in the case of Concordia, it's small utilities like liquidation bots or risk and interest rate management for collaterals. To write these things as tiny tools that people could pick up and recompose and build together, I think is a helpful approach to get everybody building more complicated programs faster. This is kind of like when you open up a Linux, it just comes with all these utility programs on the command line. And everybody who implements a Linux has these same few hundred tiny programs. It would be great to see an ethos, a culture of that with building small, single-purpose blockchain applications also. Like a constant product swap could be a candidate for that. And then you build up more interesting and structured things on top of those. We'll just call them standardized basics. Yeah, thanks for the tee up, Alejo.
Yeah, I think some of the hard part on this is figuring out the economics of building it. It takes resources, definitely developers, and some of the stuff isn't directly monetizable. So, like for example, as you were saying, like the liquidation bots, if it can benefit an application that can generate fees, that's sustainable. And then that same liquidation bot can be used by others. But sometimes some things like governance, for example, may take a lot of resources to build, but not directly monetizable. So and the Aptos Foundation, I think, has a really good program for supporting grants for things like this. So yeah, but I think that's one of the challenges on building some of the stuff out, and how do we get to the same level of parity as Ethereum?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got the grant program that's continuously ongoing. I think we've made over a dozen different grants out there and continue to identify more opportunities out there. So if you do have these issues, do see these opportunities, we should definitely call them out and have people submit the grants out there. I think another direction that we're taking, and ideally if we can get a little bit more insight up from this call, is actually making out specific requests for proposals on these different areas so that we can get teams properly funded and executing on this, with the broader hope of getting a few competitive proposals out there so that we can actually identify the team that is positioned best to succeed in that space. But to kind of continue on with the theme, what are some of the important building blocks that we don't currently see in the Aptos space? And I think we've alluded to a handful already.
Yeah, I think one thing that we're trying to build for Aptos is scheduling, transaction scheduling, and that kind of goes hand in hand with Oracle's in a lot of ways. So we felt it's a natural way progression. And when people want scheduling, it's really what do they want to do? Are they bringing information on chain? How do they want to reveal it? Is it going to be a commit real scheme? Is it going to be an external source? Really, just how people can automate their infrastructure in any type of cadence or crankwise fashion. So these are some of the things that we're thinking about and things that we want to help developers with and things that we've heard is needed. In that sense, it's really how can you control any sort of gas schedule for transactions that you're trying to execute for another party for.
Awesome. We actually also have some upcoming efforts coming from here in terms of just having the ability to have a fee payer model, so you can actually have somebody else pay for your gas, and therefore you can take some other sort of exchange on that space.
Yeah, it would be very cool if you could actually scope to different parts of your transaction could be narrowed down to which fee payers are actually allowed.
Yeah, I for one have been following that issue on the fee payer model with rapt attention. Yeah, that gives you this very interesting ability.
One nice thing that we came from a Solana native chain, and we've gone to like 6 or 7 other chains since then. But one thing that I actually did like about Solana was having multiple signers in a single transaction and having a native signature scheme. There is some, I haven't actually looked too deeply into the primitives around multiple signers inside a transaction, and making sure that you're not subject to any replay attacks is something I think about a lot.
Yeah, I guess the one concern I have, and maybe we can discuss that a little bit, is when you have multiple signers, how do you actually make that work in practice? Because it's got to seem like you've got a condition where you need to get the transaction to the blockchain in a reasonable period of time, but you also need to aggregate, say, 3 or more different signatures from potentially asynchronous clients. What have you seen in practice in other ecosystems, and how these things come together?
Right. So it's not exactly a multi-sig that I'm really concerned about for getting it from different parties. It's more so that when transactions actually being created itself, it goes through, let's say, multiple different entities, I wouldn't say entities, but authority verticals. Let's say that you're running some complex infrastructure like we do at Switchboard. You want to make sure that you get a signature from one, like verifying the proof of any transaction that's going on chain, and then one from the Oracle itself, and one from the person that's actually verifying who should get the reward. I think more so in those lines of just having the scheme for access control or permission control rather than a multi-sig is more so the line of thinking I'm in right now.
Got it. So basically different kind of like software agents that each kind of do some sort of validation. I'm curious though, what's the difference between a multi-signature and the scheme that you're mentioning?
Well, a multi-sig would need a certain threshold of signatures to actually sign anything at all. Here, I'm trying to represent different parties signing different parts or authorizing different things in a single transaction.
Got it.
So if somebody wants to spot you the gas cost for you to send your transaction, you can still be the protagonist of this transaction. You can sign for all the interesting stuff that happens for your account, but I could opt to just pay the fee. And we work together that way. We didn't multi-sign anything, but we're both party to this transaction.
It makes me wonder, how much can we get away with within the constructs of the existing Aptos multi-agent? Since you theoretically, the first person that signs is the one that pays the gas, and the other ones are attesting to something. Now it's potentially up to the smart contract itself to dictate what those attestations might mean.
Yeah, so it's actually not that hard to fit into the current model, as long as the users are really aware to, like, inside of any signature, they had to add some type of nod. So that could just be in the most recent block hash or whatnot. One thing that is could really be a big win for Aptos, I think, is actually when you have a single payer like you do on Aptos. There's only so many transactions you can have launched in parallel before. I forgot what error I get, but anyways, sometimes it's very nice when you have a single payer that can sign for paying for the gas fees and another payer representing the authority. Just one thought that we've come across.
Oh yeah, we're also doing some explorations on how we can give out better tooling and guidance on kind of scaling up, because right now on Aptos we effectively have the limit of, I think it's 100 transactions per an account inside the mempool stage or pre-consensus stages.
Right. So
you don't.
I'm not sure if we had some load balancing stuff on our RPC side, but I was noticing some of that too. But yeah, if there's improvements there, I'm very excited. We can really ramp up our some of the transaction oracles do. Right now, we really commit to a batching scheme where we take all the price updates that we can for a certain interval to and do them in a single transaction, which is more gas efficient anyways, but it helps reduce that mempool load.
But I think this all goes to the fact that right now we're basically everybody talking directly to the node. The tooling is pretty thin. The SDK is basically a wrapper around the API. And so when we think about batching of transactions or managing of account states, that's really going to be up to the developers like ourselves to kind of figure out how to handle that. And if there's nothing that kind of helps scale that out, it becomes a bottleneck in the end-to-end development process.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose there could be toolings to make this a bit more transparent, but no matter what, you would have to delegate the gas payers to an entire pool, which does it's when you're moving funds around, it's hard to make that beyond a chain primitive. But also in the same vein that we were talking about RPC additions, we pull a lot of information on multiple accounts at once. So pulling possibly the accounts that all share a single program state or all maintain some sort of program state is very useful as well.
Awesome. Let's see. Does anybody else want to throw anything out there else about tooling or data before we hop on to the next topic? All right. So let's see. We also, let's talk a little bit about oracles. Like what's the current status on oracles? I know we got the recent gas updates out there. Is the majority of the ecosystem still doing poll-based oracle updates? What do we need to see in the space to really amplify utility of oracles?
Yeah, well, I guess that's also one that's really good for me to answer as well, since Switchboard isn't a good oracle. But yeah, when you think about oracles, for those less familiar, there's really three different mechanisms that oracles function on. There's a push model where oracles directly put all the data that they need on chain. And because Switchboard is actually a build your own oracle type of model where oracles are actually paid out by an escrow made by the feed creator, a push model is more natural. A lot of protocols are moving towards a pull model where they can stream data to either their own L1 or some centralized source that has a BLS signature threshold for verifying each price update, and users pull that on chain, which is useful as well, but you could be bottlenecked by the front end you're pulling the price from. And the last one, which I think is my favorite, is the commit reveal scheme, where people actually know that a protocol is pointing at a certain price feed. They commit to interacting with it at a certain point and taking the next price update, and then the oracle pushes that price afterwards. And that way you can actually eradicate the whole MEV window for all of these any MEV actor, I should say, on the chain, because no matter what the ordering is of all user transactions, the price comes in after. So it's very interesting to see that one come into play. It changes the whole latency story of oracles and how you can build them. And with Switchboard, the whole functions loss, we're letting anyone create their own code that we can actually prove ran off chain, and they can formulate a transaction that can be a price update. It could be absolutely anything. It could be an output of the game engine or a whole LLM model, like I was talking about before. And you can put that on chain, and then the whole market can, or a market could close all pending positions that were committed to using a certain price point. So with switchboard functions, I think you open up a lot more possibility for the way that you can actually interact with oracles. Yeah, I'll just pause there because that was a mouthful.
Actually, if you could continue, I'd be curious to know how the commit reveal mechanism assists with proving the soundness of off-chain data. Let's say I've got this data feed that's reporting on, when flights are leaving London Heathrow. That's off-chain, obviously. What does commit reveal do that a pull base wouldn't in order to de-risk, let's say, the soundness or the authenticity of that data? What's special there?
Might be on mute.
I guess he doesn't want to take the bait.
Well, another day then. I'm very curious about that. Yeah, I basically see oracles as either eager or lazy. They're eager in that they have some new data. They just got it hot off the off-chain press, and they want to get it out there on every chain, whether or not anybody's asking for it. They're just over-eager. And then another style is lazy, which is they'll give up the data only when somebody asks for it. So there could be periods of long silence, hours, days, weeks, doesn't matter. But as soon as somebody wants to know the most recent whatever, the oracle can provide it and it gets put on chain. This is a model that Pith has adopted, for example. And the trade-off here becomes especially salient when you're trying to synchronize multiple blockchains at the same time. Let's say that you were trying to maintain a portfolio of digital assets.
If someone's talking to me as well, I think some of the mics are not working for me. I told somebody was reaching out to me here, but yeah, not so sure what's going on here.
Yeah, Concordia was just speaking. I think you guys might have crossed wires. Maybe.
I can't hear Concordia at all, unfortunately. I don't know why.
Huh. He hears right. You, it seems.
Oh, that's okay. Well, can someone repeat the question?
This is a very special bug that Elon Musk has come up with. I'm impressed. I'll just leave it at. I'll just leave it at that. I
still don't hear anything, unfortunately.
All right.
You might want to reconnect because I think there's a session issue for you.
Okay, I'll join in and out. I'll be back in about a minute.
Cool. So I think that, and maybe I should wait for him to come back, but I think the question that I also was kind of curious is, one of the challenges that we're kind of hitting right now is what is randomness? Currently, the predominant way of doing randomness on blockchains is using something like DRAND or third-party randomness beacons. I don't know if we even have one on Aptos to date. I do know the team is exploring ways of building in randomness directly into the consensus protocol that would give verifiable and strong randomness. But I'm just kind of curious, does anybody know what the current state of randomness on Aptos is? Or have recommendations on how to get that?
I can speak again. I don't want to take up too much, but we'll see if I can hear everybody now. But on some other chains, we've implemented an elliptic curve VRF, which still, it depends on the model of the transaction ordering. But, it still has a number of people that if you have all parties colluding, there's still a risk. So how do you really mitigate like any randomness risk from being predictable from any party? And we, as I was discussing before, we've grown a very strong interest in TEs and being an improvement on all the trust models that currently exist in oracles and randomness on the blockchain. And you can actually source randomness provably from a TE as well. And that's something we're building for the Aptos community as a primitive to use. Of course, multiple sources is always great, but no for randomness. If you can predict all the other sources and you use one source that's predictable, that can ruin your whole randomness scheme. So for randomness, more sources does not mean better.
Any ETA when we're going to potentially see that on Aptos?
Yeah, so for the ordering of that, we're going purely by request count for a feature. So if we get a big influx of requests, we will prioritize that, and it's not a big lift from the current infrastructure. So please feel free to DM Switchboard, and we can work something out.
Awesome, awesome. All right, let me just double check our notes, see if there's anything else we wanted to cover, or if anybody else has anything else that they want to throw out there.
Well, I'm curious on what I was missing in the discussion from Concordia, if I could hear you now.
Oh, it was just talking about the trade-offs between oracles, especially in a multi-chain context. When you want to know the price of asset A that lives on chain A, the price of asset B that lives on chain B, and make sure that chain B knows about the price of asset A also, to have all of them sort of drawing from the same well.
Right.
I think that's going to be an important paradigm for oracles as we're getting more and more multi-chain.
Right.
And
well, it's all the same argument around liquidity. Like, how do you confidently source liquidity if you have the incorrect liquidity of a certain asset in a certain chain? How much could that single source influence the price? Things like that. You mean?
I suppose it might be a philosophical question when you ask, what is the price of Ethereum? When you have it represented on 20 different blockchains,
right?
And maybe on this exotic chain, there's just one ETH, and it just bounces up and down as people arbit.
Yeah.
Is that actually the price? I don't think so. The price is kind of the aggregate of everything that's going on all of the other chains.
Well,
and that leads me to the conclusion that oracles have to have an eye of Sauron scanning the entire, sector to accurately price things.
Yeah.
They can't be
I actually couldn't agree with you more, and I love this question because it really plays into like why we built Switchboard. So when you have an asset, liquidity isn't free flowing to every single exchange. You could have an exchange where the price of Ethereum is completely different because it's completely inaccessible from all the liquidity on other chains. So yes, people could try to arbit, but if there is really no medium to communicate between the two, there could legitimately be two different prices of ETH at a single time. And how do you price that? Like, how does the single source say this is the price of Ethereum? And that's kind of why, on Switchboard, you make your own data feeds. We let you build your own. We have templates for sources where there's liquidity, but if you're on a certain chain, you can very easily segment all the liquidity sources down to ones that are actually accessible by your chain and your exchange. To say that you want to balance this by liquidity, I think that has to be a little more carefully monitored, because if you have any single source that messes up their actual liquidity, then they could weight that price way more than all the other sources you're aggregating into that feed. So I think there's a lot of solutions, especially around customizable feeds rather than single feeds to represent an entire asset state. I think there's a lot of benefits to that, and I think that's really what we try to push for in what we're building.
To just kind of wrap up, I got one last question from my end. When we think about applying oracles and the risks associated with it, I mean, we're talking about prices coming from external systems to kind of inform behavior on chain. What are properties of blockchains that make it safer and more secure for users, or properties of oracles that you guys are building out to ensure that users don't get taken advantage of?
Right. So, I mean, properties of a blockchain are determinism, really. Given an input, you can actually know the output and make sure within a certain level of confidence that is actually executing correctly. When it actually comes down to oracles, you're dealing with non-deterministic data. For any input, there is not a known output. So how do you actually come to consensus on those types of models or those types of things? And if you're not actually sourcing the data for an oracle from the first party, that's completely trusted. You can't actually like if you're an Oracle protocol and you're sourcing data from a partner or from an exchange, who's there to actually validate that price point's actually true, other than what the exchange is reporting. When it comes to the web, you can actually have multiple people go fetch the price and give a certain confidence distribution on what the price actually was that they fetched. But then you also come down to, do you trust the Oracle in actually reporting that confidently? And we think that a great improvement on this whole model is actually moving the oracles into TEs to gain that level of confidence that the TE chips actually give you as well. And we built a whole primitive around actually verifying TE attestations on chain at this point. So we want to make TEs a primitive in blockchain as well for non-deterministic data. And I think that's really a big improvement on all current solutions. There is no perfect fit-all solution, but this is, I think, a vast improvement in Oracle security.
That's really exciting to hear. And just to wrap up before we go to the open floor, I just want to give all of our speakers one last chance to call out whether or not you're going to be at the hackathon next week and what services and support you might be able to provide if you're there. And starting first with Alejo from Pontum.
Yeah, we're going to have Stas, who's one of our co-founders, there in person, so definitely look out for him. And we're going to be hosting a workshop both in person and online with Boris, our CTO, so people can get started with Move. Would be awesome to see some of the public goods that are needed for Aptos to be built, some of the things that we discuss here, and also some of the ideas that people have to integrate on top of the primitives like the AMM that we have, the credit protocol that Concordia is building, some of the oracles that Switchboard has touched on today. So yeah, excited to see what people build in the hackathon, and come and talk to us.
Awesome. Looking forward to having you folks there. Haun, what about you folks?
Unfortunately not, so we're not going to be there, but we're happy to provide any, we're happy to provide any support online if anybody interested in using our product.
I greatly appreciate that. And what about Switchboard?
No, we will not be there in person, but we are always available to help. Please ping me personally. I love being bothered. I love to help people. I love to teach. So ping anyone on the Switchboard team in the chats, and we'll be very available during the whole period of it.
Awesome, really appreciate it. And I think we lost a couple of our other guests, so we'll take that async. And so with the remainder of 14 minutes, would love to bring people up. But unfortunately, I don't have hosting abilities. Maybe Alejo or the Aptos holder can bring up a couple people just to ask any questions they have.
I see Shamrock is coming online.
Awesome. Everybody looks a good gift lord when they got one.
Yo, Shamrock and roll, everyone. Always happy to see you all here and be a part of Move Monday, even if it's on Tuesday. Yeah, actually, there is no questions for me. I just want to say thanks to all the amazing speakers, and I wish to wish you all who will be in Amsterdam, please build even stronger relationships and networks we all have right now. And yeah, let's make Aptos even greater.
Awesome. Always good to hear from you, my friend.
Yeah.
And I don't see anybody else that actually wants.
No, I just wanted to say that you're an amazing co-host. So yeah, please continue. I actually wish to see you and Greg at the same time. It might be really interesting, or even with Austin, it will be hilarious.
Oh man, we need to get those guys back on the show. I mean, Greg is taking a couple days off to recharge, so we're hoping to have him back either next week or the following week, and then he and I can get back up to our shenanigans.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, I see a lot of nice faces out there. Does anybody want to come up and talk? I mean, we got Paul, we got the Nets family, we got Indexer, XYZ. Certainly, you guys have something exciting to tell the community. I see our good friends from DSRV. So just raise your hand up if you want to get up here and share some love.
Don't
There
be
we
shy.
go. Exactly. All right, we're bringing up indexer XYZ if this works appropriately. I press approve and the button. Oh, there we go.
As people come up, just quick shout out to Concordia. I know they dropped accidentally, but their team will also be there. Alex will be there, so keep an eye out for him. He's got a great big beard. I'm sure you won't miss him. But yeah, also keep an eye out for him.
Awesome.
GM guys, happy to be here.
Happy to have you. So what are you guys, anybody excited about the hackathon? Anybody planning on building anything?
Was a question for us in general?
For anybody that's here, that's up there, let's talk about what you're building, what you're planning on building, what you'd like to see built.
I kind of tying it back to the beginning, I would love to see some training of Aptos information or move for like ChatGPT, for the ChatGPT API or any of the other APIs. I think specifically for coding, I'm not in the weeds as much, but I know some folks that use it, pretty heavily for even like simple tasks on doing queries like SQL or something like that. So would be curious if, maybe someone wants to train models on Move or Aptos and then make like easier tools for people to build. That would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really great work out there, so it might be even pretty low-hanging fruit. What about you, Indexer XYZ? Anything coming out of your end?
GM, everybody. Enjoyed the conversation earlier. I felt I could echo what Leo was saying. I think there are some interesting integrations around AI. I mean, we've kind of had the thoughts, and we'd love to be able to power some sort of ChatGPT assisted model, just being able to ask questions without even necessarily having to do a GraphQL or a SQL query. We think that would be pretty cool. Like if you could just ask it who was the top trader in the last 7 days. So if anybody wanted to hack on that, we would be more than happy to provide the data to do so. But I also was just hopping up because I'm interested to hear more about the projects that are going to be hacking, if we know who all is involved and what they plan to be working on and things like that.
Awesome. Let's see. Trying to bring up Wayne. I don't know if Wayne got the invite yet. I see we brought up Mert, Iden. I don't know if you want to share anything.
I see the APT tools team has their hand raised. You guys want to
go for it?
Hi guys, I just wanted to say that in Amsterdam Hackathon, we will show off the most profitable wallets and the wallet profiler for the Aptos blockchain. So if you like the idea or you want us to code something else, just message to us.
Hey, David, Wayne Colberth with Nutrios. I can jump in there real quick.
Love it. Go for it.
So we're going to be there. James, my co-founder, is coming with me. We're building some pretty cool stuff at the intersection of AI and blockchain. And we're specifically going to be building and demoing the technology we're calling Cameo. For those that don't know what we do, we're kind of building in the food space. And we're building some really tight quant models around recipe generation and analysis. GPT can do some of that stuff, but it's not really good at it because it doesn't understand kind of the quantitative piece of cooking. And so the models that we're building, we're pulling all kinds of data off of the internet in terms of recipes. And the thing that we're building with Cameo is whenever our model sucks in a piece of data, creates a label, goes into building the model, we're actually building a way to compensate the chef or the creator that built that recipe. And so that anytime data that we pull from someone goes into the model and then is used on the back end for output and analysis of the model, we can actually airdrop some tokens to the creator of that content. So, you know, it's a big issue in the AI world is all these models are generating revenues and profits off of everyone else's data. And what we're really creating is a way to put a structure around that on the Aptos chain. And then we can compensate everyone whose data has participated in that model. It's some really, really cool stuff that we're doing. I think will have broad applicability beyond just the models that we're building.
That's really exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing all that come together. And I think that is a nice application of AI in this space. When do you imagine we're going to start seeing more of this come to mainnet?
So we're deployed in Miami right now. We've got one last piece that we need before we can go to mainnet. We're just operating on testnet right now, and that's really, I don't want to get the weeds on it now, but it's a third party being able to pay for transactions because with our model of the deployed application now, we've got a lot of user interaction and we kind of have to go end around to be able to pay for transactions on behalf of the user. But depending on when that comes online is when we'll hit mainnet and we'll be launching a token hopefully by the fall.
That's going to be super exciting. Looking forward to seeing that come to mainnet. Let's see. I don't see if anybody else has their hand up or if anybody else wants to share out some thoughts before we call it a day. All right. So I just wrap it up and just say thank you to everybody for coming here today. Hopefully everybody has registered for the Amsterdam Hackathon. Even if you're just attending to go and see what's going on, the expectation was to register. So please reach out to us. Oh, I see Paul has their hand up. So we'll give one last chance for one last speaker before I call it a day. Go for it, Paul.
Yep. Thanks. I thought you missed it, David. Thanks again. So basically, there's nothing much we're doing on Holland, basically, but there are a few alphas dropping in really soon. We're planning. We are really experimenting with the token V2, and the major thing out there is basically for this week we launched one-on-one auctions. And yeah, a few alphas going on and onboarding more developers, onboarding more creators, artists is in the process. That's all basically, and honestly loving the space.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And so just to kind of wrap up, so the goal is if you're coming to the Amsterdam Hackathon and you haven't registered, please reach out to us ASAP so that we can get you properly locked in, especially if you have a team there or if you're one of our close partners that we've been working with. We want to keep everybody well accounted for. We do have limited space and we are probably overbooked, so it's going to be really fun as we squeeze in all of our hackers together to have a lot of fun. We're going to have about 15 to 20 people from Aptos there to go and help everybody hack out and build and have some fun. And so with that, I look forward to seeing a good chunk of you guys on Monday in Amsterdam. Have a great week and see you soon.